Hello, this is Mark at Gary's Guitars, and this is what you think it is. A Holy Grail amp, the Fender Deluxe, the original Fender Deluxe. This is a 57. It's the year they modeled their reissue after. Coming through the store here, so I want to make a video. It's a very special amp, very special associations. So I'm going to make a little video talking about it, but first I'm doing a little walk around. We'll spin the amp a little. Here we are. So Fender named a lot of things Deluxe, and this being one of them, the first one of them. Then, of course, came the Deluxe Reverb, which added reverb, and of course, they call the Hot Rod Deluxe. People say, "Oh, I got a Fender Deluxe," and it turns out to be a Hot Rod Deluxe, and it's not this for sure. So, 1957. Let's have a look here. The simplicity is elegant. We have two volumes, two discrete channels. So two sets of inputs and two volumes that can be blended. And then a tone control, a master tone control, and that's it. That's part of the beauty of this amp. The simplicity is what gets you the sound. So, this one, like many, has a few non-original things, including the speaker. This handle is a newer handle than the one that was originally on it. It's in the same style. Oh, the Tweed, the beautiful Tweed. So what does this amp do? Well, let's have a little talk about it. So, here we are. Say hello to my little friend. That's been my catchphrase on these smaller amp videos, so I decided to keep the tradition. There's a bunch more small amp videos if you go on the YouTube and look around, so do that. So, what makes this amp unique? Also, a little aside, a lot of times I do these videos and people go like, play the damn thing, I want to hear it. Well, if you want to hear this amp being played, listen to Neil Young, listen to Keith Richards, listen to, there's plenty of evidence of this amp, audio evidence. And this is supposed to be a talk about the amp and what makes it great. So, actually, I was told that Keith Richards uses the Harvard. The Harvard was, you have the Princeton. And the Harvard, also an Ivy League school, and this kind of like Ivy League 50s naming thing was really popular. Harvard's a lot like this too, like a simpler version of the Princeton. Don't, off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact difference, but I was told by someone who knows the guy that Keith Richards is buying up all the Harvards, and that's what he uses in the studio. And but I bet he's used these as well in the past, the Deluxe Reverb. I mean the regular Deluxe. So why did I just accidentally say Deluxe Reverb? Because that's the most common version with the front faceplate that you see, the black Tolex. A fabulous amp as well, but a very different amp. Actually, this is a very different amp than the later Deluxes and all the other things they call Deluxe. Oddly enough, the thing that other than the reissue of this amp, the thing that I would most liken it to is the Fender Pro Junior. The cheapest amp that Fender makes, because the Pro Junior has that same volume and tone. That's it. You plug your guitar into it. It runs it through a very simple circuit, makes it louder, sends it out the speaker. That's the sound. That's why less stuff in the way. So when you, for example, have a reverb or tremolo circuit, you have your input side, you have your guitar, your pickup impedance of, like, just say you got a 5K pickup on your guitar, and you have to share that with the different parts of the amp, and they kind of come back together later. So you send a little bit to the reverb and a little bit to the vibrato, and it changes your sound. And these things that are parallel to each other, it changes it. And the fact the sound is split up and brought back together later, that changes things. Whether it be phase cancellation, phase realignment, however you want to scientifically explain that, the simpler the amp, the more urgent the sound. This amp also is one of the earliest Fender amps. It was made, it uses 6v6 power tubes, 12x7 preamp tube. And it was made in a time when a lot of guitar amps were, this is, I guess you could call it 20 watts, but no, it's not 20 watts. It's the 12 watt amp, maybe. Fender by using low impedances and big, bulky output transformers, Fender was able to get more wattage out of a certain pairs of tubes. So, let's call it a 12 watt amp. It is, wattage is kind of like horsepower. There's all sorts of ways to lie about it. It has a tube rectifier, and you probably heard about the differences between solid state and tube rectifiers, but if not, the tube rectifier so the rectification is turning AC into DC. And to do that, if you throw it into, you throw your AC in, and you got to get it, so AC has a pulse to it. Pop, 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 pop. DC has no pulse. And by running it through the rectifier circuit, we take that AC and we turn it into DC. There's a couple ways to do that. Sometimes we do it just sending it around in a circle in a rectifier bridge. And this has a tube rectifier, which everything did back then. Actually, Leo Fender was pretty instrumental in solid state rectification. When you think of Fender and very classic amps, and you think of the sound that a tube rectifier will give you, which I hopefully remember to say about in 30 seconds, the sound that a tube rectifier gives you, you think of Fender. However, Leo Fender was, the tube rectifier has disadvantages to it as well, and he brought the solid state rectifier into the amp world and championed it, and most of his great designs have that. So, what does the tube rectifier do? Well, because your tube is running off the same voltage as you get your push-pull pair. So, you got two power tubes working together. And because of that, you get a little compression out of that. But also, if you hit the amp with a loud sound, the rectifier, so the tubes pull more current from the rectifier circuit, and that makes the rectifier tube, compress a little bit, get a little taken aback, so to speak, and then that in turn creates compression. There's just a drop in current because the actual rectifier tube is working a little harder. So it's a compression effect. And tubes just give you a compression effect anyways, and transformers do that kind of thing anyways, where it just kind of slows things down and kind of creates a phase realignment too. You can talk about that in the high frequencies travel much faster than the low frequencies, and so the high frequencies will hit whatever's getting hit first, and if they're getting knocked back, they'll just kind of get knocked back and realigned with the low frequencies. So, what else can I tell you about this amp? It just starts at most volumes. This particular one has an old speaker in it, not a vintage speaker, not the original speaker we suspect, but something of the era, so we've left it in. There's just a little rub in it, meaning at times during the travel of the voice coil, it can touch, and that creates that real comb and tissue paper distortion. So, we've left it in for now. Someone might want to put a premium replacement in or a vintage replacement. But that's part of the sound, is the distortion you get out of these amps. These amps distort basically 0 to noon on the volume knob, gives you a little more volume. And anything above that is how much distortion do you want. I think it was Gary who told me that in an early Fender, he had an early Fender instruction manual, and it said in it, never turn your amp up so loud that it will distort. Which is exactly what everyone did right away, and it's the greatest sound. So these amps function well on 10. If you read the stories about Neil Young using his Deluxe, he has the volume on 10 all the time, and he uses the tone as the regulation of the intensity of the amp, not the volume. Because the tone circuit on this is very unique from other Fender amps as well. Okay, so I've talked a lot. I've shown you the amp. It is, in fact, beautiful. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos about small amps, because I love small amps. Check out all the other stuff here on YouTube, and we'll see you soon.